So lay down, grab your blocks, place them underneath the knees and the soles of the feet together. Just allow yourself for a moment to soften, to let the muscles relax. Now remember, your blocks have a couple different heights, so use whatever support feels best underneath the knees to support you. Allow yourself a few moments just to feel the breath moving freely through you. Notice how you feel physically and mentally and emotionally. Allow yourself to arrive however it is that you came to your mat today, reminding ourselves that the practice is here to support us no matter what. We know that yoga is a great physical practice. It can tone and lengthen muscles of the body, encouraging flexibility and promoting relaxation. But it's also an extremely powerful emotional practice. Oftentimes we hold emotions and past traumas in our bodies. Any heartaches, heartbreaks, or trials we experienced but haven't felt deeply can easily make their home within our bodies. And as we practice, it becomes a useful tool to help clear out any toxic energies and find true healing from the inside out. Allow yourself just to connect with the feeling of the breath moving through the body here. Physical tightening and tension in the body reminds us that the things in life we bind to are also the things that take away our freedom. We can bind our thoughts to rigid views. We can entrench ourselves in our own sense of righteous and wrongness. We can cut deeper grooves with our habits and long-held beliefs. We can become stuck with an expectation of how life, ourselves, or other people should be. When we are bound or attached, we are no longer free. Imagine a sense of letting go of attachments here, like the breath can move through anything we cling to, creating space and freedom. We're going to nice and slowly use the hands and reach down for the thighs and just help the knees come back upright so the feet can plant on the floor. Now take the feet hip width apart and bring the heels underneath the knees. Let the hands just rest beside the hips. You can even slide those shoulder blades under the back. We're going to take 3 rounds of rolling bridge just to kind of loosen up the spine here. So begin to press into the feet and inhale, just lift the hips gently off the ground. It doesn't have to be very high. And then exhale, lower down 1 vertebra at a time. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhale, gently lift the hips. And exhale, lower. 1 more time. Feel lifting, like a lengthening through the tailbone. And exhale, lower it down. Now you're going to reach or use your foot and slide your block a little closer to you so you can grab it if you have it, maybe a pillow or a blanket if you don't. You're going to press down into the feet, lift the hips, and slide the block underneath the sacrum for a supported bridge. Now, if you don't have any props, know that this can still be done if you create fists and just set the fist underneath the sacrum so you're still lifting into a little tiny back bend. And allow yourself just to soften here onto the ground. Letting the shoulders soften, the feet rest. You can let the palms face up if the hands are beside you, and just give yourself a few moments resting here in a supported bridge. As a reminder, we're going to move through some deep hip openers today. So we want to only move to each shape, only to the first edge, the first point of resistance. When we arrive and only show up at that first edge, the body can then relax around the edges as we hold it for time. And as we hold these asanas, these shapes, allow yourself to try to settle into a sense of stillness. As a reminder, if you feel any sharp or shooting pains, it's a warning sign. Your body's telling you to gently come out of a pose. But oftentimes we do experience some discomfort in these poses. And when that discomfort arises, allow yourself to soften around the edges, trying to let go of any excess tension. Nice and slowly press down into the feet. Lift the hips and slide your block out from underneath you and lower those hips gently back to the ground. And with your feet still planted on the floor, you're gonna just let those knees sway a little to the right, a little to the left, just like a little windshield wiper going back and forth. Noticing what you might be feeling here. Let's take a few more breaths. All right, now slowly letting the legs come back upright. Let's take a big stretch, reach the arms overhead, feet out in front. And we're gonna take our banana asana. So you're gonna shift the feet all the way to the right side of the mat. And then kind of slither those shoulders on over to the right side of the mat. You're keeping the left hip, left shoulder heavy on the ground. To deepen this sensation, you can use your right hand to hold on to the left wrist, and the left ankle could cross over or on top of the right. Allow yourself to feel heavy here as if you just begin to sink gently into the floor. When we hold these poses, these shapes for long periods of time, feelings are able to start bubbling up within us. Especially as we turn our focus inward, we become more aware of what is going on within. Now, this time that we're holding the poses, begin to activate different feelings and emotions. We begin to tune in and really feel whatever is coming up. As we continue our practice, we might notice different poses hold more tension than others. And those are likely to be the same ones that will help us feel and heal the most. Notice if any tension arises. How can you soften through the shoulders and the jaw? We're going to nice and slowly on your next inhale, you're going to gently scoot yourself back to center. Just taking up some length down the center of your mat. Take a breath here. And then we'll begin to inhale, reach the arms overhead for a big stretch again. And exhale, scoot on over to the left, first with the feet, then with the shoulders. This time, the right foot might cross over the left ankle, and the right hand might hold, or no, the left hand might hold onto the right wrist. Give yourself a moment to feel heavy and soft to the ground. Resistance is a common experience. We feel it in our bodies, in the places of holding, gripping, and stiffness. We can also feel it in our hearts, in the places that cling and the places that hide, in the scary and the powerful. It manifests in the ability to let go, whether in a yoga pose or during an argument. It also manifests in resistance to take action and change. Keeping the rhythm of the breath, and allow yourself to stay present with the sensations you might be feeling in the body. Nice and slowly on an inhale, begin to make your way back to center, letting the hands rest by your side. And then we're going to nice and slowly allow ourselves to roll over to one side. The head rests on the bicep for a moment. And then you're going to gently press the hand that's on top so you can lift yourself back up to a seat. And we're going to begin to set up for our caterpillar pose. So if you have a blanket, sometimes it's nice to let your seat rest on the edge of a blanket. Now, a couple different options for your caterpillar. So you're going to take the legs out in front of you. My favorite option lately are to use blocks underneath my knees. I like to use the second height, but you can always use the first height if you prefer. Let those feet relax. And then just let the palms face up. So if you put the block so that the inside of the block is lined up with the inside of the knee, there should be some space on the outside of the knee. And you can let your hands rest on that part of the block. And then just allow your chest to round forward, chin comes to chest. Just like you're kind of curling up into a little ball here. Now, as a reminder, if that option does not feel great to the low back and you have a bolster nearby, you can let the legs stay out straight in front of you and let the bolster rest on the chest, kind of at an angle, so it kind of props the torso upright. Nice. And allow yourself just to soften and let go here. So notice if any tension arises in the neck or the jaw, how can you find a little softness? Our tendency when resistance arises is one of two paths. We may deny it, push it away, hide it, or distract ourselves from it by doing something, anything else. We may also try to stampede through it, pushing our way by making ourselves do something we aren't yet willing to do. These two reactions create less than desirable results, and they don't give us the opportunity to get to the bottom of the matter. They also don't allow us to shift out of that space organically, moving through and releasing it. Allow yourself to imagine that as a breath moves through you, we can begin to release, to let go of that resistance, to acknowledge it, to see it and let it exist. Notice if your mind begins to wander, and just gently invite it back into the space, back into the body, following the rhythm of the breath. Continue to feel the breath just moving freely through you. Softening where you can. We'll slowly begin to lift the body back upright. Use the hands, help scoop underneath the knees so the feet can come to the ground. And bring your hands back behind you for a moment and just allow yourself to sway the knees side to side. Bring some movement of the energy back into those legs. All right, now we're gonna lift upright and then bring the feet around so we can come into a tabletop position. We're not going to be in tabletop very long, so unless you know you like squatting underneath the hips for Sphinx pose, just place any blankets to the side. If you're on a hard surface, it might be nice to lay the blanket out wide across the mat as we're going to come into a frog like variation. So the knee might come off the mat slightly. So if you want that padding, allow yourself to do so. And then we're going to slowly come down to the forearms and then step the knees back behind you, letting the hips sink to the floor. And you're setting up for Sphinx pose. So a couple different options for you. Now, if you're working with a lot of tension in the low back or maybe a previous injury, you can stack the hands, open the elbows wide, rest the head down, and that's placing your back in extension, just a little more gentle of a version. So know if it ever becomes too much, you can always come to that shape. Now, the farther away your elbows are from the shoulders, the less resistance you'll have as well. But you can go up to the point of having those elbows directly underneath the shoulders. Now, whichever arm variation you choose, allow the belly to sink towards the floor. The chest might even sink in between the arms. Shoulders might come up towards the ears, and give yourself a little wiggle of those heels just to let the legs relax. Take a couple breaths here, and then we're going to add on to this shape. All right, so keeping up on your forearms or down on your hands, you're going to begin to slide the inside of the left knee out towards the line of the hip. So kind of like you're in tree pose. And then the left foot can either be towards the inside of the right thigh, just like tree, or for more sensation, you can begin to bring that left foot out underneath the knee. So there's about a 90-degree angle bend there. So up to whether the foot is close or whether it's underneath the knee. And the knee can be up in line with the hip, or it can be down a little further based on what feels good to your hip. Allow the hips to feel like they can sink towards the floor. And if you want, you can grab a block and rest the third eye or the forehead down onto the block, giving yourself a little rest of the neck. That head can be heavy. Once you find that place that feels good, allow yourself to soften and try to rest in some stillness. Now, there's a third way of moving through resistance. The path to moving through the resistance is by meeting it, coming right up to it and allowing ourselves to feel it and get to know it. The first benefit of this practice is that the tension eases. We might even notice this here on the yoga mat in these poses. Resistance happens when a muscle is unwilling to stretch further, and we feel that place of tension, like a wire stretched between two poles. So even though we're compelled to stretch these muscles, we can allow ourselves to soften, to stay in that first edge, so the body can truly and fully open through the softening. Allow yourself to rest here and just notice the response of the body. We'll start slowly by just extending that left leg back behind us, moving it nice and slowly. And then stack the hands, open the elbows wide, and rest down into that crocodile pose. Just giving yourself a moment here, belly down on the mat, softening those hips and the arms, feeling a heaviness to the floor, and taking a few belly breaths. Maybe you can notice the difference between the right and the left leg. How the body yearns to find that balance to complete the other side. Well, nice and slowly begin to lift back onto our forearms. Remember, if that was becoming too much, always feel free to keep the forehead down. So setting the upper body back into your Sphinx pose, letting yourself find a place of softness and stillness. Take a few breaths here. Now we'll open up for that frog leg position with the right knee. So bring the inside of the right knee up towards the line of the hip. It doesn't have to go all the way. And remember that right foot can be towards the inside of the left thigh or out underneath the knee, deciding or depending on what feels better to you. If you'd like to use the block underneath your head, go ahead and grab that now. And then allow yourself just to begin to rest into the shape. Meeting any resistance that arises. Just feeling the breath move through you. The Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Pema Chodron, gives a one-word instruction for working with resistance of this level. Remind yourself to stay. It's really the bottom line, because the ordinary mind will always try to dart away from stillness, from sinking inward, from being present. It will always tend to flow into habitual mental grooves, like emotional reactivity, restlessness, pure and simple. Just a few more breaths here. We'll slowly begin to send that right leg back behind us, nice and slowly and steady. Once the legs are long, allow yourself to rest the body back down to the ground, perhaps resting the head on the back of the hands. You can give yourself a moment to just wiggle out the hips. If it feels nice, you can bend the knees so the feet are up towards the ceiling, and then sway the feet side to side like a windshield wiper. All right, we'll slowly lower the feet down. Lift the hips. You can slide the hand underneath shoulders, press into your tabletop pose. Hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips, and give yourself a few rounds of cat and cow. So you'll inhale, lift the chest, lift the tail. Exhale, round the way, around the spine, press the ground away. Inhale, slide shoulders away from the ears as you extend the heart between the arms. And then exhale, bring the chin to your chest. And keep moving. Let's go this about 3 more times. Feeling that movement in the spine. One more breath. Inhale, come back to neutral. We'll make our way into a downward dog, just opening up the feet in the back of the legs. So lift the hips high. Keep pressing down through the whole hand. Don't worry about your heels feeling heavy to the ground. Just bend the knees and sway those hips, pedal out the legs. Just take some movement here. We'll take a few breaths. If you'd like a little stillness, I suggest just bending the knees a lot, staying in that true yin fashion, nice and gentle. The heels can lift far off the ground. One more breath here. And we're going to come into our sleeping swan or pigeon pose with the right foot first. So I like to come in from tabletop. So if you'd like to bring your knees down to the mat first, do so. We're going to bring the right knee towards the right wrist. And you're going to slide that right ankle toward the left hip. So it's closer to the left knee. Then you'll step the left leg back. You might use your arms on a block or on a bolster or pillows. Now, if your right hip is lifted, you can always slide a pillow or blanket underneath the hip and just allow yourself to fold or rest here on the arms. Maybe the whole belly comes to the ground, and allow yourself to find a place of stillness in your pigeon pose, your sleeping swan. Remember, if this no longer feels good at any point in the body, you can take this into a figure 4 position on your back, putting the right ankle on top of the left thigh. Yoga shows us how to heal the heart's resistance. So just as we meet the resistance in the physical body here on the mat, we can take a similar approach to our emotional resistance within. We can return to our hearts, where we feel the heaviness of resistance. There might be a longing, an ache that calls for our attention, calls for our action. This is where the resistance arises, and the unwillingness to take action where we are called to do so. Our heart usually knows that it's time to let go of something and time to become more than we've allowed ourselves to be. Take another deep breath in. Slowly let it go. And we'll gently use the hands to press our torso back up. You're going to tuck the left toes. You can step that left knee a little closer and take that right leg back for either a balancing table or three-leg dog. Just stretch the right leg out behind you and allow yourself to take the movement here if it feels good. That might be rolling the hip, creating circles with the knee. And we're going to begin to take it to the next side. Whether you're coming down from your tabletop or your downward dog, we're going to bring the left knee forward towards the left wrist. Remember, the ankle of the left leg can go towards that right hip, towards that right knee. We'll tuck the right toes, step the right knee back, settling down for your pigeon pose using whatever props you like. It might be different than the other side, and know that that is okay. Allow yourself to acknowledge what arises in the body here. Connect with the breath and soften where you can. Oftentimes, emotional resistance causes us to feel stuck. It's easier to distract ourselves than meeting it when this feeling arises. It's easier to do anything other than the action we are told to take. We often prefer to stay safe and comfortable in what already is. But can we pause and soften and wait and then return to meet this inner resistance? Nice and slowly, take a deep breath in and let it all out. Use your hands, lift the body, and make your way back to your three-leg dog or your balancing table with that left leg extended. Give yourself some time to open up that hip, move, take what movements that feels good. We'll slowly come into our tabletop pose, setting up for a child's pose twist. You're going to take the knees nice and wide. So this is a great time if you want some padding for the knees, grab that. If you have a block close by, it might be nice for your head, so you can grab that as well. Take the knees as wide as it feels okay. So your first edge, bring the big toes together, sit the seat to your heels and begin to walk the hands towards the top of the mat and rest the head on a block or on the ground. Give yourself a few breaths in child's pose before we take it into our twist. Let your body soften in between the legs. Breathe into the space of the hips, the thighs. All right, so slowly begin just to lift the head off the mat. We're going to start with the right hand. Take the right hand, thread underneath the left armpit, palm faces up. Now make sure you bring that arm closer to the knees so you have lots of space for the neck. Place the right side of the face on the mat or on a block. And let the left arm just relax here. So you're kind of laying on that right arm, giving your upper torso through the thoracic cavity a gentle twist. And still getting that big hip opener here. Resistance is a call to action, and that's why it feels uncomfortable. It reflects the two energies pulling apart from each other within us. The energy that wants to grow and transform, and the energy that wants to stay the same and be safe. Nice and slowly, we'll begin to unwind. So put a little pressure in that left hand to bring the right arm back out in front. Let the head rest on the mat for a moment in your child's pose and take a big breath. Slowly lift the head. We're going to twist to the right, spreading the left hand underneath that right armpit. Remember, slide the left arm closer to the knee, creating space for the neck. The left side of the face rest down onto the ground or a block, and let that right arm relax. Give yourself a moment to soften here. Most of the time, we prefer to choose what is safe and comfortable, the familiar, habitual, the least risky. But our inner self beckons to us. Something is happening. Something is ready to open, to grow, and we need to make space for it. We need to be willing to change. If we want to evolve as human and spiritual beings, we need to heed the call of resistance. Nice and slowly, we'll begin to unwind, come back into child's pose and take a breath. And we're going to slowly lift back up into tabletop. If there's any last movements that feel good, maybe a downward dog, opening up those legs, maybe you take that. We're going to begin to come to our back for our final resting pose. So allow yourself to move any props that you might, grab any props that you prefer to have. Sometimes it's nice to slide a bolster, some blocks underneath the knees, maybe a blanket underneath the head or over the belly, and just begin to make your way to a place of rest. So we want this to be a place that we can feel at ease, safe, and let the nervous system relax. So allow yourself to find that place for you. Meeting the resistance allows it to reveal itself. When we open our hearts to the message of what is arising, the right action reveals itself in time. We don't have to figure it out on our own, and that can be tremendously freeing. When we are truly ready to hold our resistance in attentiveness, compassion, and deep interest, the process unfolds in its own natural way, just as the pose opens when the body is ready. Allow yourself to take a deep sigh of relief, to let go, and allow yourself to soften here into the resistance, soften into the mat. Allow yourself to deepen the breath, inviting awareness to the body and mind, and inviting gentle movement back to the fingers and toes. When you're ready, take a big stretch, reach the arms overhead, and slowly begin to roll to one side. Perhaps it's the opposite side you rolled to earlier. Nice and slowly, when you're ready, begin to bring yourself up to a seat, a comfortable position, allowing yourself just to check in with the body and the mind. You can let the hands rest wherever you feel most connected to yourself. That might be on the thighs in prayer or stacked on top of the heart. Bowing the chin gently towards the chest, Give yourself a moment of gratitude. If we experience resistance this week, may we allow ourselves to take time to soften into it, meet it, and get to know it. May we stop long enough to feel and listen and trust that as we do, transformation and life will reveal itself to us in both powerful and magical ways. We'll take a deep breath in through the nose. HA, sound it out through the mouth. And together we bow. Namaste.